Good
to see you both this bank holiday weekend. We appreciate it. So let's kick off. An awful lot being talked about benefits politically. The Sunday Telegraph leads the story, and their focus is on Nigel Farage now planning a speech on Tuesday in which he is attempting to outflank the Prime Minister, as the headline says there.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how he now seems to be driving the political debate. I mean, as you say, Anna, there's stories all over the papers this morning about the two-child benefit cap, and lo and behold, Nigel Farage has given this big speech on Tuesday in which he will say the Reform government would bring back the winter fuel payment for everyone, would lift the two-child benefit cap. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's like £5 billion a year. They say that would come from cutting foreign aid budget, closing asylum hotels, ending net zero subsidies, basically trying to attack Labour from the left. Now, if you think a couple of weeks ago, Starmer did his big speech on immigration, very controversial language, and a lot of people were saying, well, he's been forced into this position by Reform, by Nigel Farage, and now here's Farage trying to sort of push him from the left, having already done it from the right. So, I mean, it's up for debate. I'm sure Keir Starmer would deny that he's been put up to this by Nigel Farage, but it just shows that Farage right now seems to have his finger on the political pulse.
Well, yes, and we've already heard Keir Starmer this week signalling a U-turn on the winter fuel allowance. I think the words he used is he said that the rules would be changed so that more pensioners would qualify. So it's not entirely clear who will qualify now and how the rules will change. But there's a real sense, if we go to the front of the Observer, that he is minded to scrap the two-child benefit cap as well.
And I think, Kevin is right that I think what's happened here is that Keir Starmer and the Labour government, I'm pretty sure, wanted to do this from the off, but were nervous about the reaction of lifting benefits. It's generally not popular. And actually, the polling on the two-child benefit cap being lifted is that more people support the cap than oppose the cap. But I do think that it's interesting that he's doing this. I suspect he'll be relieved that Nigel Farage is speaking out for it, because it gives Labour the space to do it. But it's expensive. It would cost about £3.5 billion a year if they were to completely lift it, less if it were to be just for a third child and just for additional children who have a disability, which is one of the suggestions the Observer reports. And apparently Liz Kendall, the Work and Pensions Secretary, had been lobbying for this privately. She's obviously introducing a raft of quite stringent, some people feel, some Labour MPs feel, quite tough benefit cuts, but she had supported this one. And I do think that it's a question that had made Labour politicians very uncomfortable, because when you ask them about the last Labour governments under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, what's the one thing they will tell you? They'll tell you about all the kids that were lifted out of poverty. And this would lift an estimated 471,000 children out of poverty. But there's another part to this, that we have, despite Boris Johnson's best efforts, a lack of children in this country. Schools are closing around everywhere. We have a birth rate crisis. And so something like this is likely to encourage people that want bigger families to maybe think more seriously about being able to.
You're talking about Boris Johnson personally, having had so many children, rather than having a policy of trying to encourage other people to have children.
Yes. No, that would have been useful. If he'd done that, that would have helped.
His ninth.
But it's interesting, the way that the story's been presented in the Observer is that this is Keir Starmer has decided this must be done and is telling Rachel Reeves, right, you've got to find the money.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure that that's the case, actually. I think behind the scenes, I don't think that is quite the case.
But how is that coming out? Is that something that Keir Starmer wants people to think that he's the one who wants it, but the money woman is making life difficult?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I wish I knew, because up until now, Starmer and Reeves have been, in lockstep with one another. But it's definitely been presented as, this is Keir Starmer's coming into this way of thinking, and it's those bad bean counters in the Treasury who are like saying, well, actually, we can't really afford it. I'm not entirely sure that's...
And what do you make of Benjamin's point that Nigel Farage coming out and saying these things should be done actually gives cover to Keir Starmer? Do you think that's right, or do you think he'll think he's stealing a march on me here and people are going to think that he's, dictating the way the country goes? Yeah,
I mean, Ben's right. It does, he can't then be accused of just making promises willy-nilly and to hell with the financial cost. That's the Prime Minister. I mean, what is interesting is, where does Kemi Badenoch stand on this? If you've got the Prime Minister saying we'll lift it, you've got Nigel Farage also saying we'll lift it. Does that give the Tories even space now to come at it from the other side? Because, as you say, Ben, you're right, that it polls well, this policy. So, Kemi Badenoch can maybe turn around and say, but at least we are responsible custodians of the public finances. You know, you've got Keir Starmer ripping up his fiscal rules over this. You've got Nigel Farage promising the moon to everyone, whereas we're the sensible ones here who say, OK, fine, but how are you going to afford it? So
Kemi Badenoch is on Trevor Phillips' show, actually, so it'll be interesting to see what she says.
Yeah, it will. Maybe this will be something where she can have some clear blue water, as it were, because, you know, it's popular, the cap. I think it's the wrong decision on many levels, but it's popular and it's quite conservative. And so maybe this is a chance for her to finally make herself distinct from both Farage and the Prime Minister.
And a very quick thought on what you were saying about the benefits, the Welfare Secretary Liz Kendall wanting it lifted. She's also introducing some tough welfare reforms. There's a big rebellion potentially underway, about 150 MPs. Is one of the reasons that she wants the two-child benefit cap lifted to try and persuade them round, do we think? Or?
Well, I think alongside the Nigel Farage intervention, I think the timing of this is pretty transparent, that if you've got those Labour MPs that are incredibly uncomfortable, you've had those poor local election results, so maybe they're less likely to be loyal because they think we've only got one term here. Well, this is going to alleviate some of those MPs that are feeling uncomfortable, I would say.
Yeah, really interesting to see how that plays out in a few weeks' time. Take us to the Sunday Times next. The main story that they have is Alan Bates, described here, and I don't think many people would disagree, as post office hero, complaining that he has still his final offer, I think he's saying, of compensation from the government over the post office scandal is less than half of his original claim.
49.2% of his original claim. Now, they have moved a bit. The original offer, I think, was 1/6 of what he was looking for, which he said was derisory, which I think most people would agree with. They then went to a third. That's not good enough. So now they're saying, fine, I'll take it or leave it offer is 49.2%. And he says, well, you know, it just shows that they're not serious really about compensating the sub-postmasters to any reasonable level. I mean, it's a classic example, I think, of one of these issues where it all blew up. There was obviously the famous drama, which everyone watched, and you know, no one could quite believe what these poor people had gone through. The politicians all tripped over themselves to say, yeah, we will set up a body to make sure you get all the money you're entitled to, and actually, in the final analysis, it's nothing like what they were entitled to. And I think, you know, the public's sympathy would very much be on Alan Bates and others who are in the same boat.
Yeah, so we'll see if there's any movement on that, and if anyone can move the dial, it's Alan Bates.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's written a very powerful piece in the Sunday Times this morning.
And I mean, that really is bean counting.
Very quickly, yeah. But apologies, we're out of time. I'm so sorry, Ben, but we're back in the next hour, so we'll see you both then. Yeah, thanks very much indeed.